What's up, Notjust developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. Today we're starting a brand new project and I'm pretty sure you're gonna love it. Today we're starting the LinkedIn clone using React Native and Stepzen, and we're gonna build a full stack social media application, a professional social media application very similar to LinkedIn. This tutorial is going to cover the full stack development of this application, both on the front end and on the back end, and it's going to be split into two episodes. In this one, we're going to build the user interface using React Native, and in the next week's episode, we're going to do the backend side using Stepzen. We're going to build a GraphQL API, which is going to be scalable, and we're going to integrate everything together so that people can log in, create posts, view the feed, interact with each other, and so on. So let's have a look at what exactly we're going to build today in terms of user interface. Today, we're going to focus on a couple of screens that are very important for a social media application. And the first one is the home feed, where you see a list of posts. Then we're going to be able to click on a post and go to a details page of that post. Maybe we can display comments there, add new comments, and so on. And a very important page in a professional social media application is the profile page, where we will display more information about the user. The most important part about today's application is going to be it's going to be a cross-platform application, and the application that we will build, we will run both on mobile for iOS and Android and also on web. And everything is going to be powered on the front end by Expo. We're going to use Expo router for the navigation system. So if you are new to this, you're going to love how easy it is to build navigation systems with Expo router and the benefits that we get out of a box by using it, such as being able to run it both on mobile and web and deep linking and a lot more details. That's our tech stack on the front end. On the back end, which is going to be the next episode, we're going to build a GraphQL API using Stepzen and PostgreSQL as that database. This stack is going to be very scalable. The Postgres is relationship database, and it's going to be very easy for us to model all our entities, and using Stepzen we are going to very easily create a GraphQL API that later we will be able to query from our React Native application. And thank you very much for Stepzen for sponsoring this tutorial, this series of tutorial. Stepzen is a very unique GraphQL server that allows you to create GraphQL APIs from different building blocks. For example, you can connect to Stepzen directly to a database that we're going to see in the next episode. You can even connect it to a REST API or different GraphQL APIs. And by connecting multiple data sources, you can create one unified source for your data where you can query from your front end. We had done a lot of projects with Stepzen in the past, and I'm very thankful to them because they support our channel and help build this kind of tutorials here. So if you enjoy what we're doing on the channel, make sure to check out the link in the description below, create an account, and be ready because next episode we are actually going to use Stepzen to build the GraphQL API. So again, thank you very much, Stepzen, for sponsoring this series. And we are ready to get started with the LinkedIn project. So let's roll the intro. All right. Hello, everyone in the live chat. How are you doing, guys? How is it going for you? Are you excited about this one? Before we jump into the coding part, there are a couple of prerequisites that I have here. One of them is the step-by-step guide that I prepare on our website. The link as well you can find in the description below, or you can go to notjust.dev/projects/LinkedIn. And actually, I'm going to open it up in our browser. Here we have it. Here should this be, And here is the first episode, the LinkedIn user interface. So yeah, this contains all the steps that we're gonna have to take, some code snippets for you to be able to check with your code if something is not going as planned, but everything we're gonna implement step by step together here in this live stream. So just have it on the side to check out from time to time to make sure that everything is on track. Also, the asset bundle that will include some dummy data, the presentation, and other important assets that you're gonna need in order to follow along, and make sure to download it following this URL or in the link in the description below. So yeah, I think with that being said, we are ready. If we have asset bundle, step-by-step guide, we can go ahead and get started. Before we jump into that, here is a very quick demo of what we're gonna build today. Here you can see the home screen. We can scroll through the posts. We can press on one of these posts to navigate to the details page. If we press on the user, we're gonna go to his profile, and here we display more information about this user. We can go back. And everything is working also on the web. Here on the right, this is the web version. And yeah, that's exactly what we are going to build today. And even more, because I have prepared some bonus features that your guys will decide at the end of the live stream. So make sure to stay tuned till the end for the bonus features that we're gonna have. Anyway, let's get started. I'm going to put this one here for later. And let's start by initializing our project, our Expo project. To do that, I'm gonna open up a terminal. Let me zoom in. I'm gonna navigate to the folder where I keep all my projects. Give me just 1 second. Okay, so once you are in the directory where you want to initialize your React Native project, let's go ahead and use npx create expo application. We're going to use @latest to make sure that we are using the latest version of Create Expo application utility. And you don't have to have it installed. As you can see, we are using npx here. So npx will check if you have already this Create Expo application locally, it will use it. Otherwise, it will go ahead and take it from npm. So that's a very easy way to get started. Now let's provide a name linked in here. And I want to start with a template. Let's go ahead and do -t for the template, and I'm gonna start with the tabs because this template, in a moment I'm gonna explain about this template. Let's just start the process of initializing this. If you're watching this after a couple of weeks or months of the release of this video, by executing this, everything should be fine. At the moment, I also have to do SDK 49 in order to take the latest version of Expo SDK. So should it be SDK-49? Yeah, I think so. Yes. So this tabs template will come pre-installed with Expo Router. If you don't have experience with Expo Router, it's a navigation system. It's a file-based navigation system for React Native applications, and it's very easy to work with it because we don't have to manage all of the screens inside the navigation like with React Navigation. Instead, we simply create files and folders in our application directory, and they are automatically mapped to screens. We can navigate to them. They have automatic deep links and a lot of other benefits. So we're gonna see that in a moment, how it works. But yeah, let's wait until npm installs all the dependencies and we can get started. Hey, live chat, how are you doing, guys? Where are you joining us from? Oliver from France, hello. David, Rogelio, how are you doing, guys? You don't need to add SDK 49, just 49 is enough. Okay, didn't know about that, good to know. Anyway, here is our application built, initialized. So we can go ahead and open it in Visual Studio Code or any other editor of your choice. So here we have it. If I'm going to zoom in a bit, I don't need the terminal anymore. I have the application open in Visual Studio Code, and from here I can open a terminal inside Visual Studio Code to have it easier, to manage it easier here. So before we look into the code, what we have there, I'd like to go ahead and start the development server by opening a terminal and writing npm start. This will execute and start the Metro bundler from where we can run our application on different targets. One of the places where we can run the application, if you don't have emulators, simulators, and so on, you can download the Expo Go application on your physical device and simply scan this QR code with your mobile phone, and you can build and develop your application this way without having, as I said, to install like simulators and so on. If you want to open it on Android emulator, just press A. For iOS, which I'm using here, I'm gonna press I. So this should connect here. Yes, it's opening Expo Go. It's loading the JavaScript bundle, and soon we are gonna see our brand new application. Another option you have here is to run it on web by pressing W, and we see that it's opening on web, and here will be our web version. Yes, here we have a web version. If your computer has dark mode, I would recommend going ahead and disabling it, because we're not going to focus on dark mode, light mode in this tutorial. So in order to make sure that everything looks good, because this template has automatic themes, I'm gonna switch off the dark mode on my PC, and here we have the web application rendered besides our mobile application. As we can see, this template contains two tabs in the bottom tab navigator. We can switch through them. The same thing here on the web. I'm not gonna need the web for now. We can look at it later. And from the tab 1, we also are able to open this model. So this is the blank template. Before we get started, I really want to go ahead and have a look at the structure of our application, maybe clean up some things to make our life a bit easier in the next steps. And yeah, let's see what do we have here. As I said, Expo Router is the file-based navigation system, and how it works is all the files and folders inside this app directory, they are screens in our application. Well, almost all of them. We're going to talk about layouts and stuff like that in a moment. So if you open up directory, this is where our screens will live. For example, if you look at the tabs, here we have an index, which is our tab 1, and the 2.tsx, which is the tab 2. Perfect. And yeah, that's most of the things that we need to know at the moment. Another important folder that we have is these components, which will contain reusable components that we can reuse in different parts of our application. And I think that's the most important part. Anyway, what I like to do when structuring my React Native applications is to keep all the source code related to my application inside the source directory. So we can do that right now by creating a new folder, src, and let's go ahead and move the application directory to src. And this is possible in Expo Router v2. Previously it was not possible. As well, the components, let's move in src. Make sure you're moving in the right place and not inside the application. Components should be side by side with application. I'm gonna also do the constants there. and assets, I can leave them there. Okay, now the application is not gonna work because we have to restart it as we moved the location of our application folder, and explorer needs to restart to understand that the new application is under the source. And now we can reload the application or run it again. And we're gonna have some problems just because we have to adjust a little bit the paths, the relative paths that we are using. As you can see, at the moment, this template is using aliased paths. So for example, where do we start with? I think we're gonna have a lot of places we have to fix. But if we go to tsconfig, here we can see that this add path is an alias to the root directory. If we, instead of that, will do the add to be source as the root, basically a short link from this syntax to source, in that case, it's going to be a bit easier for us. For example, in our application tabs index, cannot find module or its corresponding type declaration. Components. It should work. Unable to resolve assets. Okay, I think this one are working. I'm not sure why they are still with red for me. We're gonna debug that later. But on the emulator, the problem is unable to resolve assets, fonts, and so on. This is coming from application_layout because here we are importing the font with a relative path. Now that we moved this file to the source, we need to add one more double dots. I mean, we need to go back one folder more in order to access these assets. So if I save and reload, yeah, I'm not very happy that we have to do all of these steps right now, but it's really going to make your application much cleaner, having all the source code in the source directory. Because, for example, later on, we will, besides the source, we're going to have like the backend with a Stepzen and so on. So I don't want to mess the source code for our mobile application with the configuration and anything else that we have there. So as we can see now, everything is working fine. So the two changes that we have had to do is in tsconfig to remap the add/path to point to the source directory. Make sure you have the same syntax. And inside our app layout, where we have require for the font, to add one more double dots here. And as we can see, everything is working fine. I'm not sure why my VS Code doesn't like this syntax, but it should work. So I don't know, a quick try to restart the TypeScript server. Will it work? If I close it and open it again. Yeah, it seems to have worked. Okay, so what do we have right now? We have a restructure and clean empty application. I'm gonna go ahead and actually commit this just to have it as a commit where you can view it later on. I'm gonna provide the source code. So init expo app. And okay. Should we also clean up a little bit our tabs? Because at the moment, if we look at the tabs index, this is our home screen. So as you can see, this tab 1 is the text that is being rendered here. So I'm not sure if we're gonna need anything from here. So I would rather go ahead and delete this text view and just leave a container. Maybe Okay, maybe the text I'm gonna leave, but the edit screen info we can definitely delete from here. So it can go away like this. And the separator as well, we don't need it for now. If we go to the to.tsx, this is the second tab, as we can see here. And let's go ahead and remove the view and the edit screen info as well from here, the separator, and the import of edit screen from there. Now, as you can see in the components, this edit screen info, this component is not used any longer in our application, so we can easily delete it. Move to trash. With external link, I can do a quick search, external link as well. It was being used in the previous component that we removed, so we can safely delete this as well. And probably we're good this way. So git add, git commit, clean unused components. All right, so I'm not gonna go into more of this cleaning of this perfectionism because I'm pretty sure you want to see something actionable, you want to see something already on the screen. Let me just double check if it's working, because something is not working. Edit screen info from model. Yes, if I go to the model, this model actually also was using the edit screen info, so I can go ahead and remove it from here, not to have errors. And I need to git add. So yeah, as I was saying, like, I'm pretty sure you guys already want to see something, to build something. So that's what we're gonna do in the next step. We're done with setting up, with configuring everything. We have a pretty clear project, and we are ready to get started and build our LinkedIn application. If you're looking in the guide, the first step that we want to do is, let's go ahead and set up all the tabs. In the bottom here, all the tabs that LinkedIn has. I will also have to probably open LinkedIn here, just for us to have as a reference. And if I do inspect, I should put it in iPhone 12 Pro. Maybe I can't. Let me see. Okay, so from here, here is my LinkedIn. If I refresh, then navigation went to the bottom. Okay, that's good. And I'm gonna move it here with us. All right, so here is the LinkedIn application. And as you can see at the bottom, we have 5 tabs. The first one is home. Then we have my network. Then we have a post, notification, and jobs. So let's go ahead and do the same in our application. At the moment, we have only 2 tabs. We need 5 of them. So how do we create that? Well, as I said, with Expo Router, to create new screens, we simply create files. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and source up tabs, because this tabs folder is the bottom tab navigation. So all the screens like index and to from here, they are mapped to a separate tab in the bottom tab navigation. So if I go ahead and copy paste the to and call it network, and maybe we can also modify the title here for the network. maybe the name of a functional component network screen to be more descriptive, network. And just by creating this file, we already see a new tab in our bottom tab navigation with the label network. So if I go there, we see the text network from here. So that's how easy it is to create and add new screens to our application. Let's go ahead and do the same for the next one. I'm going to copy paste the network and I'm going to rename it to post, or maybe new dash post to showcase that this is a new post. So let's call the function new post screen, and the text that renders, it's not very important, but just for us to see that we are rendering the right component, I'm going to edit it as well. After that, I'm going to do once again that, copy paste the component and rename it to notifications. Let's call it notifications screen. Notifications. And lastly, we have the jobs. Let's call it job screen and jobs here. I think these two .tsx now we don't need it anymore because we already have 6 of them. So let's remove 2 tsx to be left with only 5 tabs. Yes, perfect. So yes, we already have these tabs. No root name 2. Because we remove it to, we need to go, yeah, we're gonna fix that in a moment. But yeah, we have 5 tabs. We can move around from one to another. The problem at the moment is that they're not displaying the right icon, and maybe for example, if I go to the new post, the title is also not the best one. So how can we adjust some navigation properties for all of these screens that were automatically created for us? Well, that's possible with Explorer, and to do that, we're gonna open the layout file from this folder. And this layout file is responsible for everything that groups together all of our screens. So in the layout is the place where we are working with the navigation. So as you can see, we're going to look a little bit through here. Like, let's scroll to the bottom, and here we can see the tabs.screen. And this syntax looks very similar to React navigation because in fact this is React navigation. Explorer behind the scenes is using React navigation. So the same way as you are familiar with, if you've been using React navigation before, on how to adjust like titles and tab bar icon and all the other properties, the same way you can do that here with Explorer as well. The way you do it is these tabs is imported from Explorer. We have a global like tabs provider, and here we can adjust the screen options, and these are the options that are applied to all of our screens. For example, for all of our screens inside this navigator. As you can see, for here it says tab bar active tint color, which is a color coming from our color scheme. Instead of that, I'm gonna actually replace this one to a color, I think 191919, which is almost a black color, because that's how LinkedIn is doing. The highlighted tab is almost a black icon. So that's what you can do here. Screen options are applied as options to all of the screens inside this tabs navigator. Now, how do we adjust, for example, the title of some of our screens? The way to do that is using the tabs.screen, and it's very important to target the screen that you want to adjust by specifying the name here. The name, in this case, is 2, and that's why we have this warning, because we removed that file 2. So instead of that, I'm gonna target the second tab, which should be my network. So the name should match exactly the name of the file for our screen, in this case network. So if I choose the name network here, now all of the options that we're gonna provide, they will be applied to the network tab. So for the title, we can say my network. And just like that, we see that the second tab here became my network and the title is my network. So for the icon, for the network, I have them here. So it should be group, just like this. And we have the icon changed as well. So the same way we have to target all the rest of our screens, provide the title and the specific tab bar icon. In order to save a little bit of time, we can go ahead and copy all of the screens from here. I hope I named them the same way. And they basically no route name notifications. So notifications. Oh, it's notifications copy. So the file is the problem. I need to call it notifications. And in that case, I'm not going to have any errors. The only icon that has not been changed, if we go to the layout, is the first one for the tab screen index. So for the title of the tab screen index, we can call it home feed. And for the header, for the tab bar icon, let's call it home. And here we have the home icon as well set in our tab navigator. Here in the header right, if you're interested, this is what is rendering this icon in which opens the model. So yeah, just for you to know how we can add icons in the header tab that can open other screens or maybe trigger some models. We don't need it, but let's leave it. Maybe later we can have some models as well. So with that being said, our bottom tab navigation is set up. I think we have to decrease a little bit the size of in the tab bar icon at the top, the size of the icon to maybe 24. No, 24, not 14. Yeah, I think 24 is better. It was the icons were too large. So tab 1, network, new post screen, notification, and jobs. Perfect, amazing. So let's go ahead and I'm going to add everything to Git. Set up tabs or bottom tab navigation. Awesome. All right, so the next step is going to be to start working on some screens. Our navigation is more or less set up for now. Later on, I'm gonna show you how to create some dynamic routes, and yeah, we're gonna step by step learn all of these techniques. The next step is going to be to focus on the home feed, and here what we want to do is to render a list of posts on the home feed. So let me double check the live chat to see what are you guys doing here. How are you? Are you following along, guys? Paulo is saying I'm one of your students from the Masterclass. By the way, thank you for reminding me. Guys, if you are at that level where you want to advance as a full stack mobile developer, maybe you have already done a couple of projects on the YouTube channel and you are ready for a next challenge, then make sure to check out our Academy, because the Academy is our premium course that can teach you full stack mobile development with React Native, AWS Simplify, both on front end, back end. And this is contains everything basically you need to know in order to build these applications. By the way, Gigi is one of our students, and he joined the academy with no experience, and in less than 3 months he learned React Native, and now he has published his first application, which is quite a huge application. It's a social media with all the features, and this is everything for a person that has been coding for only 3 months. So if you also want to be able to build this kind of applications, make sure to check out the Academy at academy.notjust.dev. Thank you. Hello from Nigeria. Hello. My first time with your live stream. Welcome here. Welcome to our community. This is what we're doing here. Every Friday, we are building exciting projects that you most probably are using, applications that you are using on your phone probably every day, like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on, WhatsApp. We're building them in React Native and with a lot of other technologies. We also always try to focus on building full stack and very functional applications that are very close to being ready. Sometimes you need to add a couple of features and you can go ahead and deploy it and start your own application based on this. And if you're new here, you are not the only one who is new here, because if I look in the analytics, it's not this one actually. Where is it? Yeah, this one. You're not the only one who is new here, because if I look in the analytics, only 1% of you guys are subscribed to the channel. So if you are not subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe right now, because that helps us a lot to reach more developers, to help more people become full stack mobile developers. Thank you very much. And I think it's time to continue working on our project. David is asking, is it possible to animate the screen when navigating? Yes, definitely, that's possible. We can maybe look into that a little bit later. So if you're going to stick around till the end, make sure to remind me to show you how we can change the animation between screens. Can we use Tech Navigator? Yes, we can use Tech Navigator. And actually, the root navigation is a stack navigator, and so basically that contains the model. Later on, we're gonna add like more screens to the root navigator for our post users and so on, and we're gonna be able to navigate back and forth from them based on a stack navigator. So yes, that's possible, and it's also like out of the box coming with Expo router. Anyway, so as I said, the next step for us is going to be our home feed. Rendering a home feed in a social media application implies rendering multiple posts from different users. It's a scrollable list. In a lot of cases, this is an infinitely scrollable list where as you scroll, more posts are loaded, as you can see here, so you can scroll infinitely. This might sound challenging and maybe like it's a lot of things how we're gonna do everything. But if we try to focus on smaller building blocks, if you try to split up the user interface into smaller components that we can reuse multiple times, then everything starts to become very realistic. So for that reason, I'm not gonna focus on rendering the whole home screen. Let's start by one simple building block from this page, which is rendering one simple post. If we're going to be able to render one post, we can put them in a list and render more posts. So the first step is going to be to create this post list item. This is going to be the final solution, but we're going to take it step by step, develop it together. So don't look at that. That's some spoilers for you. Anyway, as I said, because our post is a very reusable component because we will need to render it maybe in multiple parts of application, on the home feed, in the profile page, in the search, and also like on the home feed we render multiple posts. For that reason, to make it reusable and to be able to use the same component over and over, we need to create a custom component. For that we have the components folder, and let's go ahead and start by creating a new file called postlistitem.tsx. React Native component. I'm gonna explain step by step, so if you have some experience, just follow along and you can skip maybe this part. But for beginners that are just getting started with React Native, I'm gonna explain everything that goes into building React Native applications, including custom components, how to define them, how to send data with props, and so on. So this way everyone will be on the same page and more of you can follow along. Anyway, the post list item should be a custom component. So what's a custom component in React Native? Well, that's basically a function called post list item. A function that will return some JSX. JSX is the syntax that looks very similar to HTML, if you have experience with that. The only thing is we can render also like our custom components here. So for example, if we want to render a text on the screen, first we need to import the component text from React Native. And with this syntax, we can render here post list item. That's it. That's a custom component. That's everything that you need to define a custom component. Now, in order to use it somewhere in our application, we also have to export this function. So export default post list item. Now that we exported it, let's go ahead in our home feed. So that is our application tabs index. First things first, let's import post list item from add components post list item. We imported the component, and to render it, we will simply do the same as we were rendering this default text and view components. So to render our post list item, we open the angle brackets, we define the name of a component, we define the closing tag like this. So there are as well like tags that you can close and open in separate tags when you need to add something inside here. But if you don't need any children, you can self-close the tag like this. This is very basic, like it's the same as in HTML. So now if I'm gonna delete this text from here, tab 1, the only thing that we will see is post list item on the screen. And if we're gonna render multiple times, exactly that, what you expected, the post list item will appear multiple times because the post list item renders this text. Okay, perfect. So now we understand the basic structure of how we define custom components, how we import and how we render them. Let's go ahead and think about how are we going to send data to the post list item in order for the post list item to know what to render on the screen. So the data, first of all, we need some data for that, right? Where are we gonna get data? For that, we have an asset bundle. So make sure to download the asset bundle following the link in the description below. And this is when we will actually need the asset bundle. I'm gonna go ahead and also find it in my computer here. Asset bundle. And this asset bundle contains the data folder. Let's go ahead and drag the data folder inside our assets. And if we open the data folder, we're gonna have two JSON files that I have prepared for you, and it's gonna make our life a little bit easier to render things. The first file is post.json, and this post.json contains information, dummy data for a list of posts. with the offer, with content, image, likes, and so on. So where will we need the posts.json? We will need that on our home feed. So let's go back to app tabs index, and let's start by import posts from, we're gonna have to navigate a lot up, assets, data, posts. Yes. Now, before we work, like as you can see, this post is an array of posts. Let's take the first one. First post equal to posts at position 0. Now, how do we send the first post to our post list item? Well, as you can see in this view, how it is done, the style is a property of the view. So the style is the data that the view will receive. If we look at the same syntax, that's what we have to do with a post list item to send custom data there. Firstly, we need to provide the name of a property, and so far we haven't decided how that property will be called. But because it's about the data about a post, let's call it post. And here inside these brackets, we're gonna put the value that we want to send. The value is going to be our first post in this instance. Okay, that's how we send the post there. Let's go to our post list item and see how we can receive data on this end. How do we do that? We're going to receive it as the first parameter. All the props will be the first parameter of our functional component. And here, if I'm going to console log props, and if I'm going to open our terminal, I can restart, we see the data that we receive. And as you can see, this data is an object with a key post, because that's the name of the property that we sent. So if we only want to access the post, we're going to do props.post. Now, here is only the data about the post that this component will receive. We can use some JSX, not JSX. We can use some JavaScript syntax to right away destructure the specific property that we need from this object. And as you can see, we need the post from the properties, so we can go ahead and delete props and destructure the post. Destructuring is with these curly brackets, and we're accessing the post field from the properties. Now, to use this post information, inside this text, we can go ahead and render something from the post. As you can see, post has content. So how do we render this variable on the screen? If you think that is going to be post.content, that's almost true, but this will literally write this text on the screen. The only thing that is different is we need to wrap our variables inside curly brackets in order to be able to access JavaScript variables inside our JSX here. I like it like this. It doesn't want. Okay. So post.content, as you can see, the content is already on the screen. What does notJust developer mean to you? And if I go back to our index and change here the index of a post that we are rendering, we see that the text changes automatically. Because this variable changes, we are sending a different property post to our list item, and anytime properties change in a React component, the component is re-rendered and the new updates are displayed on the screen. So that's our basic component with dynamic properties that we'll receive from the upper component. Because we are using TypeScript here, I'm going to go ahead and define, we can see that VS Code is complaining that this post has the any type. Because we didn't specify what is the structure of these properties? What is the type of these properties? To do that, we can simply say type. And I like to call the type with the name of a component, then props. Post list item props will define what properties this component expects. As you can see, one of these property is the post, so that's why we have to have it here. And the post, at the moment, we know that it will have a content of type string. The error is still here because we need to specify that these properties are of type post list item props. To do that, we're gonna define the type with double dots and specifying the type from here. Now everything is fine, post is displaying the content, everything is perfect, but if we would try to, for example, access the image, here it's gonna say that, hey, image does not exist on the post type, because here we specify that the post can only have content. I did that just to set up the initial part, because I prefer to have the types, the general types of our application, like types for a post, for a user, and so on, in a file that is more accessible, like in a file that is specifically for our types. So let's go ahead in the source. Let's create a new file called types.ts, and let's define also, let's export a type called post, and what it will have. Well, first of all, it will have content, yes. If we look into the JSON, it has ID, it has content, image, likes, comments. So the ID is going to be a string, content is going to be a string. Here we need an equal sign. ID, content, image is going to be a string, but the thing is that not all posts should have an image, because there might be text-only posts. So to make this image optional, we can add a question mark here. And this will specify that the image can be a string or can be missing. That's also possible. Likes is a number, so let's go to the likes number. And what else? Comments. Comments we're gonna think about later. I don't want to get into that at the moment. The thing is that this offer, what's this offer? This is a separate type, and this is a user type. So we can define another type right now, because we're gonna need it in a moment, called user. It also has an ID type string. What else does it have? ID, name, position, and image. It will have a name string, the position string, position, and the image optional string, which is going to be a URL to the avatar. Now, having two types, we can say that the post will have the offer of type user. As you can see in our dummy data, a post has an offer, and this offer is of type user. So now we have more or less the types ready for for displaying a post on the feed. Let's go back to our post list item, and here, instead of specifying the type of a post, we can go ahead and import post from types, and we can specify that this post should be of type post. Now it can also render the image here, it can render content, and so on. So now our post is properly typed, and we can be sure that if we do some mistakes here, TypeScript will let us know, and we're gonna catch this error early. So that's our setup with TypeScript, and I think we are ready to start rendering and designing one of these posts. If we look at the user interface of a post, this is a simplified post from LinkedIn. It has a header with information about the person that created the post. It has the text content here, and if it has an image, it will render it full width, and on the bottom it has the footer. So yeah, with that information, let's go ahead and start rendering it. Maybe I can post structure. Yeah, post structure. And now we're gonna have to work on the user interface and the design. Let's add here a bracket because we need it in multi-line, so for that reason we need this bracket, and if I save right now it will delete it. But what I want to do is I want to start with a view, which is a simple container, and this view will be closed after our text. The view can be imported from React Native as well, and it allows us to group multiple elements together and style them as one component. It's very similar to a div on web development, in web development. So this view will have a header. It will have text content. It will have the image content, and lastly it will have a footer. Okay, we have a basic structure of our post. Let's focus on one item and start from there. For example, let's start with rendering the header. As you can see, the header as well contains other elements like an image and two text boxes. And for that reason, because it's not only one thing inside our header, it's more things grouped together, I'm gonna create a new. Actually, this text is going to be here under text content because that's already what we need. Now for the header, as I said, we need another view for the header, which will contain the image and two text boxes. Let's start actually with two texts because we're gonna see that right away on the screen. So for the first one, we already know how to work with texts. We need to access post.offer.name. You see, that's another benefit of TypeScript because it recommends us how to access properties, available properties. Below the name, we're gonna have post.offer.position. Okay, that's good, but the thing is that now everything kind of looks the same. How can we add some styles to make sure that these texts can be differentiated between each other? Well, what we can do is, here I'm going to introduce the styling in React Native. To style components in React Native, we are using styles in JavaScript format. So all our styles are simple JavaScript objects. It's not CSS, it's not anything else, it's JavaScript objects. But the syntax is quite similar to CSS, and you're gonna see why I say that. So to define styles, we are going to import the style sheet from React Native. And after the component here, let's define our const styles equal to stylesheet.create. And stylesheet.create, we will create all the styles as an object. Now here we can add styles for our components. For example, we're gonna need one style for the name. Styles for the name, or let's call it maybe user name. So what do we need for the username? Well, first of all, we need to increase a little bit the font weight to make it bold. To make it bold, we're gonna use font weight, and here you can specify bold. And nothing changes because we didn't apply this style to our text with a name. To do that, we are going to send this to the style property our styles.username. We are going to send this object. So as you can see, it's a simple JavaScript object. The property names are quite similar to CSS with some small differences. And with that being said, we see already that the name is bold there. We can even maybe increase the font size to the default is 14. Maybe we can increase it to 16. Perfect. Looks good already. So that's our styles. That's how we render text. Now let's go ahead and see how we can render images. We render images using the image component from React Native. And the image should be before our name and before our position. So here before our name, but inside the view for the header, we're gonna render the image. It's a self-closing tag because everything that the image needs can be adjusted using properties. For example, to provide the URL of the image, we can use the source property. Here we need to provide an object with URI, and the URI is going to be post.offer.image. We're not going to see anything yet because we need to add some styles, but I want you to pay attention to where we have double curly brackets. Why we have here double curly brackets for the source, but for the style we do not have it? Well, because one of them is opening the kind of portal to JavaScript, which allows us to access variables like styles. But in this case, the second one is actually the curly brackets from an object. So for example, if we want to add some style here, we can also add them inline by providing an object with, for example, width 50 and height 50. And here we have our image already displayed there. So again, pay attention at these two syntaxes, style here and style here. And think about why do we have here only one and here we have two of them? Well, because here styles is accessing the username, which is an object. In this case, we are inlining this object. And if we want to extract these styles for the image to the style sheet, which I highly recommend to separate the styles from the rendering logic, we're going to copy this object from here completely. We're going to leave only one curly brackets that will allow us to access styles.user image. And let's go ahead in our style sheet and define user image, and let's paste that object. Now it works because we extracted it to the style sheet. To make it round, we have a border radius property, border radius. And if you make the border radius half the width or the height, it's going to be fully round circle. What else do we need? At this moment, probably nothing. The only thing that we want to do at this moment is aligning stuff. As you can see at the moment, the image, the offer name, and the position, they're all rendered on top of each other. Because that's exactly how we are rendering it in our code, on top of each other. In order to render them in the same line, we can add a style to the parent view, and using flexbox, we can adjust the direction of our flex. So flex direction, if we specify row, then all the children here will be displayed in the same row. As you can see, the image, the name, and the position are displayed in the same row. But hey, we want the position to be displayed under the name. Well, in that case, we can simply wrap our name and position in another view. And in this situation, the header component that has a flex direction row will display its children in the same row. So let's look at who are the children. The children are the image and this view. So these two are displayed in the same row, and then this text box, they are part of this view. And by default, a view is rendered as a column, not as a row. So that's why we are back to being rendered as a column, and everything looks fine now. Let's go ahead and extract this flex direction from this view to styles.header, and let's specify the header here above all of them. Header, it's going to be an object. At the moment it has flex direction row. Also you can adjust how do you want to align things, because if the user is going to be a little bit larger, you're gonna see that the username and the company name, they're displayed at the top. If we specify the align items on the header, we can specify the center, and in this way, all the children will be rendered on the same horizontal line, and the name will be aligned with the image. And we can go back to a smaller width. I increase it just for you to see it. Now to work a little bit on the some of the, maybe I should do it like this so you can see better. Yeah, to add some spacing for the user image, we can add margin, right, 10, and this will move the names a little bit to the right. Maybe for the username, we can add some margin bottom 5 to add some spacing between the name and the position. Yeah, I think that's good. The thing is that at the moment, I'm still not very happy with everything now, but yeah, we can slowly fix it as we move along. Anyway, I think our header is more or less ready. Our text content is rendered perfectly. Yeah, the text is okay for now. Let's go ahead and render the image content. So the image content, we already know how to render an image. Try to pause the video and try yourself to render the post image here, and then come back and let's continue together. So to do that, we're gonna use the image component. It's a self-closing tag, and it needs two things. It needs the source with the URI of the image, and in this case, we're gonna take it from the post.image, and it also needs a style for the styles.postImage. Without providing width and height, we're never gonna see the image. So that's a very common mistake. If you have some problems if you don't see the image, try to add width and height. In this case, I'm not gonna have static width. I want to display it full width of our component. So the width is going to be 100%. And for the height, you can add height, like for example, 200, but this height is going to depend very much on them. And the thing is that we don't see anything, because from our app tabs layout, we chose a component without index. We chose a component without an image. So if I choose the 0, all right, here we have it. Still nothing, post image. Let's try to render it as the content image. It has the image. What's going on with rendering it? Okay, when these things are happening, what I like to do is I like to play with background colors. So I'm gonna add some styles to the root container called styles.container. And in this container, I can simply say background color red. And we see it here, but still the image is not displayed. If I add static width like 200, okay, it works. So width 100% doesn't work, even if I have aspect ratio of 1. Yes, it works. It's weird that with 100% with static height is not rendering at all, but if I provide width 100% and instead of height I provide the aspect ratio, and if I provide 1, that means that I want the image to be square. If I provide 1/2 or maybe 2/1, that's going to be this aspect ratio. So I'm gonna provide 1 to render square, and I don't need the background color red. Okay, perfect, now it works. For the container, I'm gonna leave background color white. Come on, white, because later on, when we add a flat list, you're gonna see how beautiful it is. That between them, there is a very small gap of gray color. Okay, so now that we have an image, we can come back to, no, actually, let's finish with this image component, because right now everything looks okay with the image, but in case, and to show that, here I'm gonna add a text called saying footer. We see the footer below the image here. If I'm gonna go ahead and add a component without an image, for example, this one, no, the second, and refresh, you can see that we have a white blank square. Why? Because this specific post, it does not have an image, but it still tries to render this component, and it still has these styles that is trying to render the square width over height. In situation where you want to conditionally render something on the screen, for example, in this case, we want to render this image only when the post has an image. This is called conditionally rendering, and the syntax to do that is going to be the following. We're going to first wrap our image component inside these curly brackets, because we want to make the rendering of the image as part of a JavaScript expression. And the JavaScript expression will be the following. If post.image is defined, we're going to use the AND operator and render the image. So as you can see, now the footer is right below the content. It works okay, but if it has an image, it will display the image and the footer will go below the image. And yeah, this works because of how JavaScript expressions are executed. Yeah, an AND operator, if it will see that the first part is false, it will never go into the second part, because false with any other value will always be false. And JavaScript basically optimizes this condition. And if, yeah, the left side is false or a falsy value, it will never go here. But if it's truthy, it will go here, and that's what it's going to basically return or render on the screen. So whenever you have conditional rendering, remember the syntax. You need the curly brackets for the JavaScript expression, then you need to put the condition first, and the last part should be what you want to render if the condition is true. Okay, that's our image. Now back here, I wanted maybe to add some padding to our header because now it basically is close together. Yes, this added the padding perfectly, and also for the content, right? So the content does not have a style yet, but we can add styles.content. And the content, where should we put it? We should put it, let's name this one header, this one body, which contains the content and the image. So the content also needs some margin, 10. Perfect. I think there is too much space between the content and the header, so we can reset the margin top to 0 and have margins on the content everywhere but the top, and now it looks more balanced. Okay. Yeah, I think it's good. The last part is going to be our footer. So for the footer, in order for you to see it as well, I'm gonna go to our tab 1 screen, and I'm gonna remove this justify and align item center for the container to align it to the top. And I'm gonna make it a bit smaller so you can also see perfectly the footer that we're gonna develop in a moment. So let's see what do we have there in the footer. In the footer we have 3 buttons: like, comment, and share, and every button is a combination of an icon and a text. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start our footer with a view, because the footer will need some style here, styles.footer. And then we have here like, comment, and basically share. As I said, every button here is a combination of an icon and a text. So to combine 2 components, we're gonna use another view here where we will put an icon and a text. Let me just add the text here, likes. And for the icon, what icon are we going to use? We're gonna use a font awesome icon. And to check icons, you can go to Expo icons. And here is a website where you can navigate and browse all the icons. I will filter only for font awesome, and I will say like or thumbs up, this one. I can import this font awesome in our application at the top. And here is how to render it. So let's go to our footer for the like, render this thumbs up. Yes, it's there. For the color, maybe we can make it gray. Size, we'll see. I think we will decrease it to 16. And yeah, perfect. Now let's also add a style to this view, because we need to make them, or maybe we can do flex direction. Row. Yes, that's okay. And basically what we're gonna have to do is to do the same thing for the comments and the same thing for the share. Comments and share. What I wanted to say here is, every time you find yourself copy-pasting groups of code, think about, is this a scenario where I can extract this part into a reusable component? Here, it's debatable because it's only 3 times and the component, like the code that is repeating, is quite small. But even in this situation, we can go from how many? Almost 20 lines of code to only 3 lines of code by simply extracting the logic of rendering one of these icons inside a separate component. So how do we do that? Remember how we created this post list item component, and let's define this footer button as a separate component here at the top. You can create a separate file for it and import it here, but I'm going to simplify everything and just have it here. So we are not going to have to export this component. So let's just simply call this a function, and it's going to be footer button. The footer button will receive maybe some properties, and what it will do, it will return this view with an icon and the likes, like this. What's going on? Oh, I mixed the function and the arrow functions. Now, footer button, if we render the footer button, we're gonna render these things. So let's go ahead here, remove everything from the footer and render the footer button 3 times. And for some reason I lost the styles, so I'm gonna have to go back until I see them again. Here they are. And yes, I'm gonna go back to our footer and let's render the footer button basically 3 times. They're displaying the same text like likes. It's okay. In a moment, we're gonna fix that. Now let's go ahead and for the footer, add some styles to put them in the same row. So footer, let's do footer, flex direction row. Now likes are in the same row. We can add maybe some padding here. Padding 10. And we don't want them to be cramped all together at the beginning of a line. There is a property called justify content, and with justify content, you specify how do you want to use the available empty space in the component, for example, in this footer component. At this moment, all the children I'll render on the left, and the empty space is all on the right. If we do space, for example, justify content, space around, then the available space will be put around the children and they will be rendered like this. I think that's what we want. Should it be space around or maybe space between? If we put space between, the items will be, yeah, I think we want around. And maybe the padding can be only vertical. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so now they are in the same row. And the last step is to dynamically send like different labels and different icons to our components. For example, for the footer button, for the first one, the text that we want to render there should be likes, and the icon should be, which one? We found it. It's thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up. And let's copy these properties for the other two and adjust. The second one should be comments, and the icon, I found an icon called comment-o, and the last one should be share, and the icon should be share. Well, it still didn't update because at the moment we are simply sending this data. Let's go ahead in our footer button and receive the text and the icon from the properties. And here, instead of rendering hard-coded text, we're gonna render the property text. And just doing that, we see likes, comments, and shares. Perfect. I think it's not plural, like it's like, comment, and share. Yes. And the same thing with the name of our icon. If instead of hard-coding the name, if we provide here the icon from the property, we're gonna see icon, comment, and share. And here for the text, maybe we can add some style to add some margin where left, 10, maybe 5 to add some spacing between the item and the icon. And I think that's good. So let me check. For the text, I think we can do also color gray and maybe increase a bit the font weight to 500. Maybe 600? No, 5. Okay, perfect. So here we have our footer, our whole post component. The last thing I think is if we have something like this without an image, I think in that case, if you look at how LinkedIn is doing, they have a line that separates the footer. So we can do that as well by going to the footer and saying that we want border top width to be 1 and border color to be gray, or maybe 0.5 here, and not gray but maybe light gray. Yeah, I think that's better. Perfect. So I hope you managed to follow along and to learn how to step by step go ahead and dissect your user interface. Start small, start with things that you know. For example, start rendering a text, then think about how to put a text on the right or an image and so on. So by doing this, you saw how we simply grew this user interface in what we have at the moment that basically renders a very basic but very nice user interface for a post in our application. If you have any issues, the source code for this component you can find in the guide here. I also here provided the type for the footer button component, because we have red arrows and we can provide here footer button. What's cool here is to see how the type of the icon is dynamically taken from the font awesome, and it's not a simple string, because if we go to the rendering the footer button, if I'm gonna make a mistake here, it's gonna tell me that this name is not one of the icons available in Expo icons. So that's really cool. Instead of sending a string here, you send like specifically the property of the font awesome name. Perfect. Let's go ahead and do git add, git commit, post component. And the next step for us is going to be to use this post, put it together in a list and have it as a scrollable list. So, guys, are you following along? How is it going so far? For everyone who is just joining this build, what we're doing today is we're building a full stack LinkedIn clone. This is going to be a 2-episode series. Today we're focused on the UI, and in the next episode we're going to do the backend. And today we're going to focus on a couple of very important screens in a LinkedIn application. For example, the home feed that renders a list of posts, and we already have one post finished. So rendering a list of them is going to be super easy. We're going to see that just in a couple of moments. Then we're gonna render a post details page. Here we're gonna learn about dynamic routes in export router. And after that, we're gonna work on the user profile that will display more information about the user. And this project is going to be available both for mobile and for web. And yeah, that's the nice part about it. And guys, if you enjoy everything that we're doing so far, if you are learning something new today, then make sure to subscribe to the channel down below, because only 1% of you are subscribed. And if you do that, also make sure to comment that you are part of a 1% club. And I'm really excited to see who of you are there, who is in our exclusive club. Let's see. Why not use Tailwind? I really prefer styling with JavaScript. I don't know. I think it's much easier for beginners to understand this. Are we going to create its backend like we did with Twitter? I have a very short term memory, so I need to remember what we did for Twitter. Twitter, we did, I think, a custom backend using Prisma and a custom notJust server. No, for this one, we're gonna do a much easier backend. We're gonna use Stepzen to connect to a PostgreSQL database, and using Stepzen, you're gonna see how easy it is to create a GraphQL API. So it's gonna be very simple. We're gonna write very few lines of code, and we're gonna leverage the power of Stepzen to build this GraphQL API. So that's what we're gonna do for the backend next time. All right, so I think we are ready to move to our next step. Kiran, you're welcome. And the question is, will it be a fully functional application? Yes, this is going to be a fully functional application. Today we're going to build the user interface. Next time we're going to build the backend, and we're going to integrate everything together in order for people to be able to sign up, to create posts, to share posts, to connect with people, and so on. So yes, we're going to connect everything together in the next episode, so make sure to check it out. And if you're watching this after a week of the release of this video, the backend is already published, because we are doing that every Friday. So in a couple of days, we're going to do the backend. So yeah, if you finish this project, check out on the channel, or check out the easiest way actually to navigate the projects that we're building is on our website, notjust.dev. You can go to the projects. I don't know where. Well, oh, here it is. You can go to the projects. Here is the latest one, the LinkedIn clone, and it contains all the episodes. At the moment, I plan 2 of them. Maybe later we can do more. I don't know if you want something. So here is our first one for the LinkedIn UI, and the next one is coming soon. Lots to learn. Yes, definitely. All right, guys. So as I said, our next step is going to be, now that we can render one post, and I'm going to show that inside our tab 1 screen, and maybe the tab 1 screen, which is the file source app tabs index, Maybe we should rename it actually to home feed screen. This makes more sense. So as you can see here, post list item, that's how we render one item. But how do we render multiple items? Well, we can go ahead and duplicate this one here, and that's gonna render two of them, hopefully. I'm not sure where it is, but yeah, something like this. Well, as you can imagine, that's not exactly the way we do it. To render list of items, especially infinite scrollable list of items like feeds and so on, we have a component in React Native called flatlist. A flatlist component, actually I'm going to remove everything from here and simply render a flatlist. I'm gonna self-close it because, again, like all the details about flatlist will be configured using properties, and a flatlist requires two properties. It has a lot of properties, but two of them are required in order to render something. The first one is the data. The data should be an array of items that we want to render in the list. So if we look at this post that we imported from the JSON, this post is an array of items, is an array of posts. So let's simply send this post to our data. And the second required property of a flatlist is the render item function. The render item is a function, so let's define this function here as an arrow function. And this render item should specify how should we render every single item from that array. How do we render an item? A post, we use the post list item component that we just created. But this post list item requires the post property. Where do we take it from? The render item basically the render item is this function. This function is going to be called for every single item in our array. And when calling this function that we have here, the flatlist will send us a couple of information. One of them is the item. So let's destructure it here in the parameters as the item, and we can send it to the post like this. So the item that will come from flatlist, in which will be one of these objects from our array, is going to be passed to the post list item. And this way we have a scrollable list of items here. Isn't it beautiful? Like, it's very simple. Now we don't even need the first list here. We don't need the text and view. We don't even need the styles, I think, right? It's just that. That's our whole home screen, home feed screen. That's the minimum for the flatlist, data and how to render every item in that array, but it contains a lot of properties, and it's very, very powerful. One of these properties that is not very powerful, but it's very handy. For example, here, I don't really like the scroll bar on the right. I don't know. I really like to hide it. So there is a property called show vertical scroll indicator, and I can turn it off by providing false. And now we don't have anything there. Another thing that I want to adjust here is to add some spacings between our items, and there are a couple of ways you can do that. You can either go ahead in the post list item, add some margin to the container, like margin vertical 10. But in that case, like, it's also gonna have like margin on the top. Maybe you can add margin bottom, but it's gonna have margin on the bottom. Like, that's maybe not the best. In React Native, there is a new property introduced called gap. And gap is specifically for providing gaps between items. And in a flat list, to provide a gap between items, we can use the content container style, and here provide the gap of 5. And just like that, we have this little gap. If I add maybe 10, it's going to be larger. Between post and behind, we see a very light gray. And this is exactly how we have it in LinkedIn as well. And yes, that's our flat list. And that's everything we have to do for this home feed. That's it, we have it. So we can go ahead and do git add, git commit -m, home feed. And that's the power of React Native. Like once you have these reusable components, after that you just put them together in different ways. So it's really easy after that to compose different screens having reusable components. And the code is really readable, like a flat list, has some data, and every data is rendered as a post list item. And if we need to know like how is this post list item, or if we need to adjust something, we can go there, we can see the header and everything, and we can add more things. And will be updated like for every single post in our application. A very good question. Louise is asking, key extractor no longer needed in the flat list. So in React Native and also in React, every time we render list of items, it's required to provide a key for every item, and that key should be unique. And this is how React behind the scenes keeps track of all the components and optimizes how it will re-render. So for example, there should be a key, and here like 1, 2, 3. You have to provide this key when you manually map through the items and render them, and we're gonna see that today we're gonna have to do that as well. But in a flat list, there is a key extractor function. Sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. And why we don't need it in this situation is that flat list will look at the data, and if the data has an ID, or if it has a key, it will use that value as the key for our component. And because in this situation we have an ID, this ID will be used as the key here. And I think it will raise an error if we will replace maybe the ID here with, I'm not gonna do that, but if you don't have an ID here, or maybe you have an underscore ID or something like that. In that situation, you're gonna have to provide a key extractor function that will receive a post and should return a key. So for example, post._ID. This is only when you do not have a key or ID on your items. In our case, we have that, so I'm gonna remove and replace it back. Good question, thank you. Okay. What's our next step? Next step. Post detail screen. Yes, that one. The dynamic pages. Perfect. Is Expo application slower than React Native application for large scale application? Nope, not at all. Okay. So yeah, our next task is going to be to create a details page for our posts. And I think, you know what is going to be another reason that we would need a details page. But no, I'm going to cover that maybe later. So let me take a note for some additional features at the end. If we're going to have time and if you're going to be good, if you're going to subscribe and like right now, we might cover a couple of features more. And that's going to be the show more. Like if the description of a post is very long, and on LinkedIn, like usually the posts are like huge, a lot of cases generated by ChatGPT. In that case, on the profile, on the feed, you'd want to render like a couple of lines. I can show you how you can do that as well. And maybe to display everything when you open the details page of that post. So how do we do that? First of all, we need a separate page for the post details. Where are we gonna do that? Well, remember that all the screens is in our app directory, and files in our app directories are basically screens in our application. So, let's first start with defining a folder, and I'm gonna explain in a moment like as well, like what are folders, why do we need folders, how do we get there, and so on. So first of all, let's define a new folder inside our application for our posts. Let's call it posts. And inside posts, let's do index.tsx. Here, let's import maybe a text. Probably from React Native is better, and let's export default post details screen, return text. It should have function. So the text should be post details screen. Sergio is asking if I plan to do Flutter. I don't think so. I will stay like focused on React Native. Don't have anything against Flutter, but I have a lot of experience with React Native. I really enjoy it. And I believe it's very helpful for building full stack applications, also cross-platform for web, mobiles, and so on. So my bet is on the whole JavaScript ecosystem, including React, React Native, and so on. So I'm gonna stay focused. So here we have post index.tsx. Let's have a look at how we can open it. At the moment, we're not gonna be able to open it in our mobile application. We're gonna do that in a moment, but let's go ahead and open the website by pressing W in the command line, in the development server. And this open the project here in this browser. This is the home feed. This is our application. Now, to navigate to our posts, basically folders and files, they are mapped to the URL. So because we have here in the application the folder posts and then index, to go to that page, we have to navigate to /posts/index. And that will render, I don't think it will render this one, because index is automatically the default one. So we can go to simply /posts. And here we have post detail screen. I'm gonna zoom in a bit, even more. And I don't know if you're gonna have in the post another file here, recommended or tsx, and if you're gonna have something, I just want to show you how folders and files are mapped to URL segments. So here recommended. So now if I'm gonna do post/recommended, we're gonna see this one because it's application, then the folder is posts, then the file name is recommended. So all of these are parts of our URL. And I'm pretty sure it's very hard to see this /post/recommended, but I'm not sure if I can zoom in. I don't think I can. So anyway, Basically, we needed the post directory just to have this /posts segment in our URL. We don't need the recommended anymore. I just wanted to showcase you how files and folders become segments in our URL. First, let's go ahead and render one dummy post on this post detail page. And after that, I'm going to show you how to dynamically have pass data between screens. So to render the post, I'm going to again import our posts from assets, data, then posts, and here inside our component I can do const post equal posts at position 0 maybe. And the thing that we render on the screen, I'm not gonna redo everything about the user interface of a post. I'm gonna simply use the post list item, and I'm gonna send there this post that we took from the array. Now, if I'm gonna go to the web version, if I'm going to go to /posts, I should see this post. And it's not, actually it's not even scrollable because it's not in a flat list. So I can go ahead, and in order to make this page scrollable, I will put the post list item inside a scrollable component. But make sure to add these brackets here. And we have a scroll view from React Native. Make sure to import it from React Native. And wrap our post list item. Now, if I'm going to go to the web, I will be able to scroll through this post. Okay. Should I first? No. I want. We still have to do two things in order to make this work. One of them is we somehow need to dynamically know the ID of a post that we want to render here, because when we navigate to this page, we need to know, like, okay, but what post should we render? And the second one is whenever we click on a post, we need to navigate there. So I think the first one is going to be these dynamic properties, the dynamic data as part of our URL. And after that, I'm going to show you how to navigate. So dynamic data part of a URL. For example, if we go to the LinkedIn, and if I'm going to press on a user profile, for example, or maybe on a post, will it work on a post? If I share, copy to clipboard, and if I'm going to open it here, even here, like this is the URL that we had there. It's linkedin.com /posts. That is the LinkedIn website, by the way. Then /, and here is some kind of ID. So basically this is the ID of my post, and it is part of a URL. And this way LinkedIn can parse this segment, take it as the ID, and find the post with that ID and render it on the screen. That works the same, like for example on Twitter. If you go to your profile, it's going to be twitter.com/your username. So this is a very common concept of passing data as part of a segment in the URL. How do we do that with Expo Router? This is called dynamic routes. And first of all is we need to define the dynamic property as part of a file name. So instead of index here, we need to provide the dynamic property between square brackets, and here we need to specify the name of the property. Is it ID, maybe a slug, maybe username, anything that you want. For example, in our case, I want to send the ID as part of a URL. That's the first step. That's you defining a dynamic segment in the URL that will be this ID. But how do we get this ID? Because now if I'm gonna go back to our local host, and if I'm gonna navigate to posts, it's gonna say that this screen doesn't exist because it's not longer index. It should have posts / something, for example, 1, 2, 3. In this case, it's gonna render it here. It targets correctly the screen that we want to target. But how do we take this ID from the URL in our component, in our screen? To do that, we're gonna use a hook called use local search parameters. And these local search parameters will contain all the dynamic fields that you have as part of your URL. In our case, we only have ID here, so we can destructure it from there. And I can do console. Maybe I can do a text here with ID text. Style, you don't need to do that. Font size 20. And here, let's do ID. I'm even going to comment out delete the post list item, just for us to see. So here is our home feed. If I'm gonna go to /posts /123, we see 1, 2, 3 here on the screen. If I'm gonna say here hello as part of the URL, that's what we see here. So as you can see, segments and parts of a URL now become data that we have access to inside our screen using use local search parameters. And with this data, I'll go back to rendering the post list item. With this data, we can go ahead and basically query from the database exactly the post that we need based on that ID. Or like if we're working with this JSON, we can alternatively do post.find. And for every post, we're gonna look where post.id is equal to this ID from the URL. And we should also make sure that we found something, because if post is different, let's return a text saying post not found. So now if I go here and if I go to /posts.123, we're gonna see post not found. But if I'm gonna do post /1, which is an ID of one of our posts, we see it here. And if I'm gonna do 2, it's gonna display another one. So with this, now every single post in our application got its own URL. And this is nice because you can take this URL and send it to one of your friends. And moreover, like behind the scenes, maybe later, you're gonna find out that this structure and Expo router automatically created deep links for your application. And that means that every time you're gonna share that URL with some of your friends, you can have it if you have both your web side deployed and your mobile application launched on the stores. Sending a URL like this, post/free, will open the post inside your application on that specific screen. And I can actually show you that using, I think, npm URI scheme can simulate sending deep links. URI scheme. Is it part of Expo? No. URI scheme. Deep link. I just want to URI scheme. This one was it, no? Yeah. Open your deep link. Yeah, here we have it. So what I can do now, like I can showcase how our application already has deep links. And what it means is that you can share a specific link to your application. And if a user has the application installed on his device, the system will open the application and will navigate to the screen that you want to navigate to. So I can show that using this npx URI scheme that simulates us opening or clicking on a deep link. So here we need to specify the deep link. The first part, again, you don't have to do this, just watch and see the power of export router. I'm gonna have to take the app scheme from app.json, and here is my app. So instead of my chat, I'm gonna do my app. Then here we need the URL to the page that we want to open. For example, if I want to open, let's say, the post with ID 1, I'm gonna say posts/1. And if I press that, look at the application. Nothing happened. Posts. Let me just check without anything like this. Is it because of Expo? I think so. Give me just 1 second. For Expo, it should be this one. Yeah. That would work when you deploy the application, but because we are running Expo, we need this exp then /. Yes, there was a problem. Could not connect to the server. What server? Give me just 1 second. Go home. No. iOS. And here actually is the right scheme that we need to use. In my case, I was using a different one, so I'm gonna get there. Okay, just like this is the deep link to our application to the home screen. Nothing happens, perfect. But if we do a deep link to post/1, you're gonna see that our application automatically opens the post 1. And it will work even like if your application is closed and someone sends you on WhatsApp this URL and you press on it, it will automatically open Expo and will not leave you on the home screen, but will navigate to specific screen of the post. This is very powerful, guys, especially if you're coming from React navigation and knowing how manual this process was to set up all the deep links for your screens. With Export Router, you get deep links automatic out of the box. Anyway, where I was at. Hopefully that showcased how these deep links will work once you will deploy your application in production. So, post has the ID. The ID is the dynamic property, and we can navigate there. But what we want to do is to navigate whenever we press on one of these posts, right? So for that, we're gonna locate our components post list item. And whenever we press on anything here in this screen, we want to navigate to the screen that we saw previously, like this one, for example, to this one. How do we do that? Well, for that, we are going to use a link component from Export Router. So let's import a link from Export Router, and let's wrap the part that we want to be linkable. I'm going to wrap the whole component with a link. and it should navigate to href. I'm gonna think about like the href in a moment, but let's put the closing tag at the end here. So this way, everything in our component is part of a link. The href should specify the URL. So the URL, we already understand how it works. We look at the folders in our app directory. So the first one is posts. That's what we start here, posts. Then we have the dynamic part ID. So if we have one here, that's gonna go to the post one. But the thing is that we want here a dynamic field based on the post that we render. So let's go ahead and put this inside curly brackets because we need JavaScript expression. Let's turn from double quotes to the backticks that is under escape. And with backticks, this is a template string, and we can add variables inside the string. So instead of this one, we're gonna add a variable with this syntax and then post.id. That's how we add the dynamic ID as part of a href. Wow, it works out of a box. I cannot believe it. Beforehand, you had to take a couple of more steps to make this work, but now it works. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's good. And just like that, if we press on this one, we're open this post. If I scroll down, if I press on this one, look how good it is at the moment. There is still some issues here with the width of our posts. So if I'm gonna look at the post list item, yes, the problem is that now our style is on the container. So we need to provide as child here. Yeah, and if we provide as child, now the navigation does not work anymore. But if we don't provide, can it receive styles here, .container? It can receive. And in this case, we don't need the view anymore. Let me just test it. No, we actually need the container. So one of them is the container, one of them is link. Wait a second. Let's call this one link. And let's add a new property link here. And this link should have a width of 100%. And the container as well, right? Doesn't want no background color red. The container doesn't want to take, but if it's flex 1. Okay, it's a little bit tricky actually with this link. So instead of that, I'm gonna stick to my plan and go ahead and remove the styles for the link and only leave the styles for our container. And here as well. So instead of having it work by default, I'm not exactly sure what it renders behind the scenes. But if we provide as child, in that case, the link will render this view as the pressable thing. The problem with this solution at the moment is that it's not clickable anymore because it gives all the responsibility for the clicks to the child because we provide it as child. And the thing is that our view does not have an onPress event. So to fix it, we simply import from React Native a pressable component, which is a view, but it has onPress events. And we replace the container view to be a pressable and make sure where you close it, it's also a pressable. And now if I press, it works. And if I scroll down, the width and everything related to the container is back to normal, because yeah, like this is our main component. The link only handles the press events. So yeah, that's the good part. Anyway, still there is something with the container width. For example, if we want on the web to make sure that the posts are rendered properly and not like on very wide screens, they will stretch to fit the whole screen, like with 100%. If you want to add some maybe responsiveness and make sure that our post does not grow more than a certain amount of pixels, for example, in LinkedIn, that would be, I don't know, LinkedIn. You see that the posts are not larger than, I don't know, 500 pixels or something like that. We can do that as well in our application and say that the container should have the width 100%, but the maximum width should be 500 pixels. So on the mobile it works fine, and on the web it also works fine. It stops at 500 pixels, but it renders on the left. So what you can do is either add a thing like align self center to center it, and this works okay on the web here. But what it will do is, yeah, it will work perfectly fine. So with this approach on web and on mobile, they're displayed correctly. Perfect. The last step is to adjust the header title, because right now it's post/id, because that's the name of the path to go there. In order to adjust the header title, we're gonna go to the layout inside our application, not inside our tabs, but inside our root application, because our posts is still part of a layout. Why it's part of a layout? Because as long as the folder does not have its own layout, the screens inside there will be part of the parent layout. So if we would have a layout here, that's where we will manage the screen. But because the post does not have a layout, we're gonna manage it still in the root layout. Here it's a lot of code, don't be scared, just let's scroll down until we have a stack screen, and we can copy this maybe model, and for the name it's going to be posts/id, exactly what you saw in the header, post ID. And for the option, I don't want presentation model, I want title post. Post, perfect. That's what I wanted. And just like that, we have our details page. Do you have any questions related to dynamic pages and how everything works? Now is the time, and if everything is clear, we can move on to the next step. Post detailed page. So to recap, everything that we learned in this part is we use folders to group screens together, and also to have to specify how our URL should look like. In our case, we wanted to have /posts/id of a post. To use a dynamic property as part of a URL, we are using these square brackets as part of a folder or the file name. In this case, our ID is part of a file name, and we can access it using the use local search parameters by destructuring it from there. Now, to navigate to that page, we are using a link component, and we provide the URL with this dynamic property of the specific post that we are pressing on. And that way we have dynamic pages which work both on mobile and also on the web with URLs, and you see here at the top everything works. And also the deep links are working and so on. Okay. So what do we have next? What do we have next? Profile screen. Yay! Yes, the next step is going to be our profile screen. Let's take a very small break to breathe some air. I think I need some air here in my office. Give me just 1 second. Whew. Hojin is asking, what do you think of stack navigation instead of link? You cannot compare the stack navigator with a link because they are two different things. The stack navigator is a type of navigator. We have tab navigator, stack navigator, drawer navigator, and so on. While the link is a simple component that helps us navigate from one screen to another. It's specifying like what is the destination we want to go. And the link works with any kind of navigators, with stack, with tabs, and so on. So for example, we can have a link that will navigate to a specific tab. That's also possible. Can you make a video on dynamic forms using React Hook form? We have a video with React Hook form. We have a specific project. It's called Google Forms. It uses React Hook form and also Zod for type validation, but it's not dynamic the way you want it. Okay, so our next step is profile screen. Let's go ahead and get started. So the profile screen will be a navigation screen that will render the details about one user. Similar to how we have details for a post, we're gonna have details of a user. So if we talk about navigation, now it's the time for you to practice and try to add a dynamic screen for users, and whenever we press on the header or maybe the name, to navigate to the user's profile screen. It's going to be quite similar to how we did to the posts. You don't have to render anything on the screen, just render like the ID as a text and that's it. Just think about how to structure the navigation part, how to structure the screen, what dynamic property you have there, and how to take it from inside your component. Try to do it yourself, practice, see if you manage, and then come back and let's do it together. So, similar how we have a folder for posts, we're gonna create a new folder for users. Now inside the users, we're gonna have the id.tsx. And here let's export default function users, how did they call it here, just for us to user profile. User profile. And let's return here a text that will render user profile. We have to import text from React Native. We can right away, we remember how to get access to the dynamic property ID from the URL. So let's do that right now. Use local search parameters imported from Expo router, user profile, and let's do here ID. Okay, we have defined the page with dynamic URL for the user profile. Now let's wrap our header of a post, or maybe the image and the name, in a link that will navigate here. So let's go ahead in the components, in post list item, and I would go ahead and wrap our header inside another link that will go, when pressed, will navigate to the user profile screen. So the whole header will be clickable. For that, we're gonna need a link. We need to close it here after this view so that the whole view of the header is going to be inside it. We need the href, which is a dynamic JavaScript syntax. So that's why we need the curly brackets and the template string. If we look at the folder structure, it's /users because that's our folder, /users, and then slash is the dynamic property ID. So what's the dynamic property of a user? It's post.offer.id. Now we need to make this as child in order to render this view as the pressable, and in order to make it work, we also need to transform from a view to a pressable. Also make sure the closing tag is correct, and this way, if now we press on the header, we are going to the user /ID, and it doesn't render the ID. We're gonna look in a moment why. Oh, because our dummy data, I remember. If we look in the posts, offer ID, actually it has offer ID. So what's going on? Oh, in the here I didn't call the use local search parameters. Yes, now it works. So back to our post list item. If we specifically press on the header anywhere, it's gonna go to the user. But if we press on anywhere else on the post, it's gonna go to the post. And from a post, again, we can press on the user and we're going to go to the user page, because here on the post details page, we are still using the post list item. Perfect. So as you can see, like this tag navigation works really great because we can go first to the post and then, oh, but who is this user? We go to the user. Okay, let's go back. We're going back to the post and let's go back to the home feed. That will work like this as well. Perfect. Okay, let's close everything. Let's go ahead and open our users ID page. And our focus is going to be here because we are going to render this user page. For the data, we have a separate assets data user here that contains an object, basically information about one user. Let's go ahead and open with user ID. Let's import this data. Assets data user. Maybe I can call it user JSON. And I can also I don't need at the moment. I can work with user JSON, but later, like in the next episode, using this ID, we're gonna fetch the data from the server, and the data that we receive back from the server, we're gonna have to store somewhere. And we're gonna use a state variable to store that data. So let's start let's set it up at this moment to have it ready for later. User set user equal use state. A state variable is a data point inside our component that whenever changed will update and re-render our component. So whenever our user will change, like when we receive a new data from the server, it will update the user interface to reflect our changes. We can provide here to the use state the default value, and the default value is going to be our user JSON from the dummy data. Now we can take this user from the state and render user.name. And if I go there, we see user profile Vadim Sabin, because that's the name coming from this JSON. Perfect. Okay. Let's start with importing some components. Yes, right now we're gonna have to render our home page like this. The home page is made out of the header, displaying information about the user, then some sections. We're gonna focus on two sections, the about and the experience. Later, maybe we can add more sections from LinkedIn, but just to get started, this is already good. So let's from React Native import a view. We will definitely need a view. We will need an image, and we will need the style sheet. Let's prepare our styles equal style sheet dot create. And let's go ahead and here in the return, let's add the round brackets and start with a view. Everything starts with a view. The view will have styles.container. Okay. So, as I said, what do we have here inside our page? We will have the header, we will have about, and we will have experience. Like this. Our header is made out of multiple components. So let's group all of them together inside a view. And I like to give them right away styles, because a view without a style is confusing because you don't know what it means. But if you add a style header here, every time you look at a view, like, okay, this is a header, this is a container, this is about us, and so on. So namings of the styles is very helpful to understand what your views and containers mean. So what do we have in the header? We're gonna have a background image, the profile image, name, and the button. So background image, then we're gonna have profile image, name and position, and connect button. Okay, it's a lot of things, but slowly we're gonna get there. Starting with the background image. A background image, we're gonna use the image component, and you already know how to use it. Image, self-closing. We provide the source, and the source is an object with this URI that we will take from user.backImage. There is a property backImage there. But how does it know? Wait a second. Because it comes from user JSON, but it understands the type from there. Actually, our state should be of type user imported from the types, And right now it's not gonna know that it has a back image, because if we open the types, our user does not yet contain all the fields that we need for the profile screen. So if we look at the user, we see that it also has a back image. So let's add the back image as an optional string. What else? About is string. Let's maybe do with question mark. Maybe it doesn't have an about, I don't know. And for the experience, I think we're gonna get there a bit later. So it's good. Now if the user has the back image, and we can provide also the style. Back image. Let's go there. And we don't see anything. Of course, we don't see anything, because back image, well, I'm gonna add some of these styles here. We have container so far, we have header, and we have back image. For container and header, we can get back there in a moment to set it up. But for the background image, just for us to see something on the screen, let's provide it with full width. It should be full width of the screen, 100%. And for the height, maybe we can play with aspect ratio of 2/1. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Or maybe even more narrow, 3/1, 3/2. I don't know math, 5/2. Yeah, that's better. So, perfect. The next step, an image for the profile picture. I'm gonna copy paste the image from the background image, and I'm only gonna change here user.image, and here not background image, but just image. Let's go ahead and provide some styles for the image. This one can have a width of 100 and the aspect ratio of 1. I want it to be squared. And yeah, my image is already PNG and rounded, but if I would have a different image, it's not gonna be that, because we need to provide border radius half of a width, so 50 is okay. Perfect. And the same goes with the outline of that image. At the moment, like, my image has an outline, but other images won't have. So let's add a border width of, I don't know, 3, and border color of white. And this way, all the images will have a nice border around them to separate the image from the background image. Okay, in a moment I'm gonna show you how I can move it up, or maybe I can do it now. Well, to move the profile image on top of our background image, there are multiple ways to do that. You can do that with transforms, but with transforms it's gonna be a bit tricky because you have to transform everything. But if I provide negative margin to the background image, it's going to push all the other things below to the top. So for example, if I add margin 60, that means that we push everything below, maybe margin bottom only. It means that we push 60 pixels below our component. But if I provide negative margin, we're gonna pull them up. And to make it in the middle, you need to do half of a width, so maybe 50. Or maybe I can do 120 and here 60. And here 60 as well. Yeah, perfect, that works better. Okay, what do we have next? Name and position. For the name and position, we're gonna have a text user.name, and we're gonna have a text user.position. Let's give a style to the user.name. Why it doesn't like the style here? Oh, styles.name. So let's go ahead and provide the name after the image. We need to increase the font size to 24 and the font weight to 500. Yeah, that works. And as you can see right now, the image, the name, everything is very close to the border. Like, in order to add some spacing, we can go ahead and add the spacing to all the image, name, and other components that we're gonna have here. Or a better approach would be to wrap all the things except the background image in another view that will contain the padding for everything inside, like this. And this view will have styles.header content, and the header content will be above the image here, and it will simply have padding 10. And this padding will be added both to the image and the name and so on. Awesome. Maybe it doesn't need padding top, not to mess up with our negative margin there. So maybe we can do padding top 0 and keep it at the middle, the image. Yeah, I think that works better. Anyway, with the name and position and images and so on, I think we are good. What we need next is the connect button. Connect button, how do we do that? We already saw this pressable component. The pressable component is a view that handles press events. So for the connect button, let's use this pressable. And inside the pressable, we need to render something. For example, a text with the word connect. Okay, we just see the text there. We can press on it. So if I add on press, we need to define, first of all, the function here on connect. We can console warn at the moment connect pressed. And if I provide this on connect to the on press event, if I'm gonna press on that text, we see the warning at the bottom, connect pressed. Perfect. It means that it handles press events correctly. Now it's a matter of styling. So let's add a style to the pressable as button and another one to the text as button text. Button text. Let's go ahead here and add these styles button and button text. For the button, I'm gonna start with a background color. There is a color called royal blue. Yes. For the text color, I'm gonna go ahead and just make it white. So color white, and maybe font weight bold or 500, maybe even 600 is going to be okay. Now back to our button. We need some spacing, so let's start with padding 10. Yes, we need to align the text in the center, so align items center. Boom, perfect. We need to make the corners round. That's going to be our border radius 50. Perfect. And maybe some margin vertical 10. Yes, and that's just like that. We have our connect button. If we press on it, it executes that function that later on we might implement the functionality of this button. Perfect. For the header itself, we can add a background color white. Yes. And with the header, I think we are done. If we look here, yes, everything that we wanted is there. The next step would be a section, the about section. So if we go here to the about, a section will be a view with a text that will be a title, for example, about. And then in this specific situation, we're gonna have some text that will render the user.about. So let's provide here styles.section. And for the about, I'm gonna provide section title. Let's go ahead and specify these styles. The section definitely needs a background color white and maybe padding 10 and maybe some margin vertical. Margin vertical 5 or maybe 10. It depends. To add some spacing between the header and the about section. Now the same thing for the section title. Section title. We want to increase the font size 18 and font weight 600. And maybe also like to add some margin vertical for this 5. Perfect, that looks better. Something like this. And when it comes to long body of text like this about, there are styles.paragraph. Let's do it like paragraph. There are some tricks and ways we can adjust to make the text more readable. One of the ways to make a text more readable is not to cramp the lines very close to each other. So for example, by specifying a line height of 20, for example, you're gonna increase a bit the spacing between the lines. So line height, if the default font weight is 14 and not font weight, font size. So by providing line height 20, we're increasing a bit the line height compared to the default one. You can see it here. Also, you can do letter spacing. This one, for example, if it's 1, the letters are very far apart. Maybe here we don't need to mess with it. Yeah, I'm not gonna mess, but line height is a very good one. Perfect. So that's our user profile. We're still not done because we have to do the experience. We're gonna do that in a moment. But before we jump into that, I wanted to show you how we can have dynamic titles. Can you hear me? I was turning on the light and asking, can you hear me? Can you see me? I wanted to show you how we can dynamically change the title of the screens. Because on the post, we have a static title. Basically, every time it's going to be post. But on a user profile, maybe I want to add the username as the header title. To do that, we can get access to the navigation using the use navigation hook. And this is coming from React Navigation, basically. Whenever you want to change the title, you can call the navigation.setOptions. And here you can update any option that you saw in our layout. And one of these options is this title. So now in our component, we can set the title using the user.name. And just like that, we have a title updated there. The only thing is that it's not recommended to have set options in the body of our component because it will always be called when the component re-renders. So I think it will even tell us that. No, in some cases it tells a warning that set options should not be in the body of our function. It should only be called when maybe the username changes. So I'm going to put it in a use layout effect. And I'm gonna call it here once, not twice. And as the second parameter after this function, I'm gonna add the dependencies. Basically, when should this function be called? It should be called only when the user.name will be updated. And this way, it still works fine. It still works fine, but it's only called a couple of times, only once basically in this scenario. If a username will change, it will be called again to update the header title. And that's the same how you can add like buttons or listeners and so on. How to make the phone? Which phone? So Rob is saying, I have recently started using GraphQL with Expo after watching. It's great and easy once you get the hang of it, but now I want to integrate push notifications in it. I'm super happy that you got started to using GraphQL and Expo. I think this is really powerful for mobile applications. Give me just 1 second. I wanted to commit this one because we are done with the profile screen, but we are not done with the whole application that we have to build today. So stay tuned, don't leave yet. Profile page. Regarding push notifications, this is something that we integrate and show and teach in our Full Stack Academy. So this is some of our, wait a second. Here we have a specific module for notification system, and this contains not only push notifications but also in-app notification with automatic notifications. Every time you register something in the notification table in the database, it will automatically send a push notifications to the user. So it's a really powerful system for specifically for a lot of applications that need user-generated notifications. User-generated notifications, for example, when a user likes a post, you want to send a notification. So that's what we have here. Whew. Okay, so it's intense today. Okay. Oh, all right. So Julian is asking, hey, is React Native mapping the ID TSX file with a URL, or is it something else? It's not React Native, it's Expo Router. So have a look at the Expo router and check out this video from start to end, because I explain a bit about how it works. I also have some dedicated videos on the channel specifically to teaching Expo router. You can look at that as well, but it's a very powerful navigation system. It's a file-based navigation system which automatically maps files inside our app directory to screens in our project. So Expo router is the one that maps this ID to a dynamic URL. How do you put the result in the phone? What do you mean by that? Check out the video from the beginning to learn how to start the project, how to execute it, how to check it out here. Because we are using Expo, here there is a QR code, and you can even run this application on your physical device just by having Expo Go on your phone and scanning this QR code. I'm going to show you just in a moment that. And come on. It's downloading. Yeah, it's still loading, but basically you can easily scan this QR code and run it on your device. And please don't spam. Come on, I'm answering. Anyway, let's go back to our project, and the next task that we have to implement here is going to be rendering the user experience here. If we look at the data of one user, we see that it has an array of experience here, right? So let's go ahead and first of all, inside our types, let's define a type, export type experience with ID string. What else it has? Title of that experience string. Then it has company name of type string, and optionally it has this company image string. Now we need a separate component that will render one of this experience. So in the components, let's create a new file, experience list item.tsx, and here let's export default experience function experience list item. This is a function that will simply return initially a text saying experience. This text should be imported from React Native. Don't know why it's not doing that. Import text from React Native. And let's go back to our app users ID. Here we're gonna have to import this component, import experience, not from types, but we need experience list item. And this experience list item, let's go ahead and render it here. But for that we need a view, a section. So I'm gonna copy the section from about. I'm gonna put it here. Instead of about, I'm gonna say experience. And instead of this text, I will render basically this experience list item. We see the experience information, the experience text here that we are rendering from our experience list item component. What we actually want to do here is to render all the items from experience array. So as you can see, the user contains a field experience, which is an array of multiple fields. Actually, our type of a user is not reflecting this yet, because the user should have experience, which is an array of experience. But this is actually optional. So now we said that every user can have an array of experiences. Now back to the user file here. In this situation, we can either use a flat list, but the problem is that, first of all, as I said, flat list is really useful for infinite scrollable lists. In this case, the amount of items that a user will have is very limited. It will have 2, 3, 5, 10, maybe 20 items in this experience, but it's still going to be limited. It's not going to be infinite scrollable. So instead of like, you cannot render multiple flat lists with the same direction on the screen, because it will not understand like which one to scroll. So for that reason, we're gonna manually loop through all the experience items here and manually render them on the screen. To do that, we need the JavaScript syntax. We need to access the array that we want to display on the screen. So that's going to be user.experience. We can have question mark. And we're going to use the map functionality from JavaScript to map from one experience to a component that will render the experience list item. And now with this, we have here 3 text containers, experience, because our user, I don't know why it has 3, because one of them we are manually rendering here, so we can remove and leave only the mapping. So now we have 2 of them, because in our data we have 2 items here. And what we did is we loop through all of them, and for each experience we render one experience list item. We also have to send this data of the experience to our component, and later on from that component to take like the name, the title, and so on, and render it on the screen. But here, whenever you are manually mapping and rendering lists of items, I'm not sure why here I don't see this warning, but it should always say yes. Here is the warning. The warning is each child in a list should have a unique key property. And I talked about this key property when explaining the flat list, but basically it means that whenever we manually map, we have to specify the key for the component that we render. And the key should be a unique key. It can be the index, but it's better if the key is something coming from the data itself. And we know that our experience has an ID, so that's what we're gonna use. The key is experience ID. And now if I'm gonna go there, I don't see the warning anymore. And React will map correctly and will know when to render each of these experience list item. Back to our experience list item, let's go ahead and define the types here for type experience list item. Props is going to be equal to an object that will contain the experience of type experience imported from our types, the one that we defined here. Now we can destructure the experience from the properties, and we can specify that this properties is of this type. I don't know why I removed the equal sign. Now that we have the experience data, we can go ahead and render experience dot, I don't know, company name. And we're gonna see right away 2 different company names on the screen. Perfect, but let's implement everything here, because as you can see in the design, every experience will have logo of the company, the title, and the company name. So with that being said, what do we need to import? We need a view, we need an image, and we need a style sheet. One of the most used components in React Native. Styles equals style sheet dot create. We will have a container. I already think ahead, like we will have a container for everything. We will have a image for the company image, and we will have a title for the title. Now in this return, let's go ahead and start everything with a view. Let's close this view after this company name, and the view will have styles.container. Then we're gonna have an image with the source experience.company image, and the style will be styles.image. Then we have a text with experience.title, and this will have a style.title. Okay, perfect. Now let's go ahead and style them a bit. For example, for the image, we're gonna have a width 50, aspect ratio 1. I don't think we have to square them, to round them. Square is okay. For the container, we want to render everything in the same line. So flex direction row. But at the same time, we want the title and company name to be one on top of each other. So we're gonna wrap them in a separate view like this and put them inside. Okay, so what else the container needs? Maybe some padding, like padding 5. Maybe margin bottom 10. I think it also has a line between them. So if I'm gonna add border width, border bottom width 0.5 and border color light gray, it's gonna have this one here. And I think besides margin, I'm gonna also add some padding bottom 10 just to have padding bottom 10 just to have like more space here. To render both the name and the image in the same horizontal line, we can add a line items center. And the image maybe can have some margin right, 10, maybe 5. Okay, and lastly, the title will have an increased font size of 16 and the font weight 500. Actually, I think from a recent version of React Native, font weight can also have, no. It needs to be 500. And here we have it, our experience. At the moment, our screen is not scrollable, but the experience, everything is fine. So if we would have like more description or more experience items, for example, if I'm going to duplicate one of this experience, E3, and maybe another one, E4. In that situation, I think we're not gonna see the fourth one. So do you know how we can fix it? Well, we have a scroll view inside our user's ID screen. Let's import a scroll view from React Native, and let's replace the root view with a scroll view to be able to scroll through it. Now, yes, we can scroll through it. And with scroll view as well, you can show vertical scroll indicator false. I don't know, don't like the vertical scroll indicator there. And we can look through all of them. And now I can remove the extra experience that is duplicated there. Perfect, perfecto, perfecto. I see that the spacings from header and about and experience is not exactly equal. So for the header, I'm gonna add margin bottom. How much? 10? To be equal to the section. Margin vertical 10. Maybe 5 is going to be enough. And 5 here as well. All right, so that's our profile screen. With a button, with about, with experience. Amazing, I love it. So let's go ahead and commit it. Git add, git commit. This is profile. We already had it, experience list. Awesome. All right, so we are still not done yet. We have 3 main screens, very important one for our LinkedIn clone. We have our home screen here that renders a list of posts. If we press on one of these posts, we're opening the post details page. And if we press on one of these users, we're opening the user page. Everything looks beautiful, everything is connected. In the next episode, we're gonna, of course, implement the backend. But before we do that and before we finish today's build, we also have to implement some of the other important screens that our application needs. For example, we need to implement the uploading a post screen, because in the next episode, we're gonna learn how to upload posts. So for that, we need a separate screen. That's what we have to do today to have it ready. And maybe something else that you can recommend, guys. So if you're watching this live, let me know what extra features you want to see in this build. And maybe we can implement something. What is the best way to have a dynamic style? For example, I want my item with ID 1 with red background color and the other in white. Should I pass the props to the style sheet? No, actually, you cannot do that. And to be honest, I really wished, I was thinking that it would be so much easier if, as you said, if these styles would be maybe functions with properties where we can send data. But the thing is that no, it's not. It's a simple object and we cannot send dynamic things here. To dynamically style things, we have to add the styles right in our JSX. To do that, let me actually showcase exactly what you asked. For example, if you have multiple items, and want to render the first one with different colors. In this example, let's work with experience here. So first of all, you need to differentiate that. If it's, basically differentiate that. In this case, I can take the index as the second parameter from the mapping, and I will send it as a separate property is first. Is going to be true if index is equal to 0. So this is going to be the property in our experience list item here that will specify if we want to render it differently than the other ones, right? So if this is true, we need a different background color. Okay, this is going to be our logic. How we can do that? As I said, we cannot pass to the container this is first and here to change the background color. What we have to do is we put usually all the styles that repeat for everything and including a background color. Where is it? Background color white, for example. We put all the styles that do not change inside the style sheet, and the dynamic styles, we put them here as one extra style here. The thing is that the property style can either receive one object of styles, or it can also receive an array of objects representing styles. So that means that we can put the style sheet container in an array. Nothing changes. As you can see, container styles are still applied. But if we do comma, we can provide another object with background color red here. And as you can see, these two are merged together, the container and this one are merged together into the same style. Now here in this one, you can have logic. So background color, you can add it here a question mark operation saying that if is first, I want to do it with light gray. Otherwise, I want to do it with white. So as you can see, the first one has a light gray background, the second one has a white background. Because here the style property depends on a variable. That's basically one way. Another way would be to there is other ways as well where you don't specify the style properties here, but you specify different style objects from the style sheet depending on a logic. For example, you can have here container and maybe container first, but in that case you're going to have to duplicate all of them. So yeah, hopefully this one gives you an idea how to do it. We take advantage of styles being able to pass as an array of multiple objects, and the dynamic properties can be specified here. Okay, I'm gonna go back actually. Let me clean it a bit, and back here, the index, we do not need it. Okay. Notification screen. For notification screens to implement like them to actually work, we need a lot of, we need extra videos. David, the Stack Navigator on Android took 5 seconds. I don't know. Yeah, interesting. Can list more than one image in the post list component. If not, we can add these features. At the moment, it's not possible, but yeah, definitely. And it would be super easy to do that. So maybe I can add it here. You mean carousels, right? And believe it or not, but a carousel can also be implemented with a flat list. A flat list with a couple of properties becomes a carousel that you can nicely swipe. All right, very good ideas here. For me, I usually handle this by passing the color value as an argument. As an argument to what? You cannot pass it to the style sheet. So, yeah, guys, sorry. I think I'm gonna grab a coffee because we still have to implement a couple of screens. One of them is going to be uploading a post that's definitely needed. And then we're gonna see from the features that you recommend, maybe we can do something. So give me 1 second, bringing a coffee and we can continue. And I'm back. Okay. So for creating a post, we have our, in the bottom tab navigation, we have this new post page, new post screen. So let's go ahead and up posts, not posts. We have tabs, and here we have new post. This is the page that we will need to work on to implement the logic of creating a new post. I'm gonna open the actual LinkedIn here to see what do we have there. So basically the screen is pretty basic. I'm gonna actually send a screenshot to us. Maybe I can turn off the dark mode. And let's send it here. I love all the Mac ecosystem, Apple ecosystem, just because it's so easy to send things, data and photos and so on from one to another. So basically, this is the screen that we want to do for creating a new post. It basically has an input at the top and a way to select some photos. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Let's start with the input. I'm gonna remove this text altogether, and to work with text inputs, that's what we need from React Native, a text input. This component helps us handle user inputs on the screen. So let's start by rendering it. The text input is a self-closing tag. And if you render it, you're not gonna see anything, but it's actually there. Because if you add a placeholder, and the placeholder should say, what do you want to talk about? And if you add this placeholder, you're gonna see where is that component, and you're gonna be able to start typing. Thank you very much, Alexandra. What do you want to say to people?
Please subscribe.
I don't think they heard you. Come here. Please subscribe, she said. Thank you. So here is our text input. Text input. Okay. What does our text input need? Maybe our container does not have to have this align items and justify content center, because yeah, the text input, as we look here, is at the top. Okay. The container might need to have a padding 10 just to add some spacing around. Okay. Maybe even more. Like, come on. 15. Okay. I'm gonna add a style to this text input, styles.input. I just want to know how wide is this text input, because right now I don't understand without a background color. Background color red. Okay, it's full width, perfect. But the thing is that maybe we're gonna want to add a lot of text. People like to add texts. So for that reason, we need to make this text input multi-line. So now if I'm gonna write a lot of text, it's going to go from a new line. That's good. I like it. Perfect. Then the input doesn't need a background color. Everything is fine. Maybe the input can have font weight, font size 16. Do we change it? No, actually no. Text style. How do we change the text, the font weight? I'm not sure actually if we need it. It updated it for the... no, it updated it actually. So 20 is too much. 18 is okay. And if I go back, I think it updated. Okay, so here we have our input. What else do we need? We need a button. We need a button. The button on this page is somewhere in the header, right? So it's either we are hiding the header and creating it ourselves here, or we'll leave a header here and simply add the post button in the header. We can try that by getting the navigation. Use navigation that is imported from export router, and in the navigation, if we do set options and we do header right, which is a component that can render, let's start with a text button. Yes, we see that the button appeared there. Now we want to make sure to call this navigation set options only once when the component mounts. So I'm going to have a use layout effect with an empty dependency array to set this button only when the component mounts. So it's a text button, post. Perfect. Because we already have that button component, never mind, I'm gonna recreate it here. So we're gonna have a pressable, and inside that pressable we're gonna have a text post. When we press on this, press, we will call on post. This should be a separate function that will be called whenever the user presses the button post. Console warn posting. I don't know what's posting, but it's posting. Now if I'm gonna go to the post and press on this button, it says posting. Perfect. We need some styles. We definitely need some styles. Styles.post button and styles post button post button text. Okay, let's add them. Post button, and we have post button text. So what do we have for the post button? It's gonna have a background color, royal blue. It's gonna have some padding, like 10, no, 5. That's probably better. It's gonna have a border radius of 10, maybe even more, 50. Let's add padding horizontal more than vertical, because on horizontal we have actually a lot of space. 15, yeah. Maybe margin right 10 to move it from the side. Okay, that's good. And for the text, we're gonna make the color white, and we're gonna make the font weight bold. Yes, that looks perfect. And if I press on this button, I'm writing posting. So that's gonna be the logic of maybe we can update the title here. Should we update the title to, in this set options, title to new post? To have new post at the top, but at the same time it has it in the bottom as the tab navigation. I don't like that the title and the button has the same text. So maybe the button will have submit. Perfect. That's good. And why is it going to this page as the home screen? I'm a bit confused. Yes, this is the home feed. Okay, perfect. So we have a button inside our header with submit. We have an input box. And let's try to access the data that the user wrote when we press submit. Well, the problem is that we cannot do that, because at the moment this text input is kind of on its own. We are not controlling it. In order to control it, we need to bind a state variable to the text input. And to do that, first of all, let's define the state variable where we will store what the user is writing. So, content maybe, and set content. This is going to be a use state, initially empty string. Now these two fields we need to bind to our text input. The first one is using the value. So we need to say that the value of text input should always match the content from the state. Now, if I'm gonna try to write something, it's gonna go back to empty because the content is always empty. In order to update the content, we're going to listen to on change text callback. And whenever we receive a new content, we are gonna update it in state using the setter. This way, we can write things here. It stays there because we update the value. But when we do on post, we have access to the data content. So if I press submit now, you see in the console log the information that we have here. And probably after the on post, you can set content to empty string. So if I press submit, it's gonna display it, and after that it's gonna set to empty string. And maybe even after you press on post, after you finish everything, you want to navigate back home. So how do we navigate there? We saw previously how we navigated using a link component, but the link was helping us navigate when user presses on something. If you want to programmatically navigate inside your code here, we can get access to the router using use router. Router should be not use route. From expo router, and we can simply do router.push, and here we specify a new screen that we want to push to. So we're gonna push to the tabs home screen. Or yeah, I think that's good. So if I go to the post and say, hey, press submit, we are redirected back to the home screen. But I'm not sure why I don't see the content anymore. Do you know why? What happened to our input content? Submit. What? That's very weird. Submit. Value on change text. Content. Set content. Content. Console word. I don't understand. It was working. Let's try again. Post. Hello. Submit. Oh, I know. That's interesting. When we assign this one, the on post, on post was a reference to an old function, so we need the on post here in the use layout effect. Now if I'm going to restart and go here, hello, submit, we see the hello. Yes, and every time the on post will change, it will update the callback function here. Yes. Hello, yes, it's there. Perfect. So I can go back from this one, submit, and I see posting hello, navigated back to the home feed. If I go to the post, we see the empty text input. Amazing. Julian is saying you can tell her that I already subscribed. Alex, Julian already subscribed. I don't know if she heard me. Anyway, so another feature of this new post screen is basically choosing pictures from your gallery. So let me go ahead and git add, git commit new post screen. Perfect. That's the basic post screen for text inputs, for textual posts. But if we want to add images to our posts, what we can use is we can use Expo Image Picker to allow users to select images from their gallery. To do that, let's follow the documentation. Let's start by installing Expo Image Picker in our application. So let's open the terminal and run npx expo install expo image picker. Let's do that. While it's installing, let's have a look at what configuration we need. So in development it's gonna work, but if you want to deploy your application to the store, you need to provide this configuration for the photo permission for your iOS application. So what we can do is let's copy these plugins. This is optional, like it's only for if you plan to deploy this application. So in app.json, we have Expo. Do we have plugins here? Yes, we have plugins. So we only need to copy this part. So after Expo router, add Expo image picker and the options for the photo permission. Okay, That's good. Now back to our new post screen. Let's see. Usage. We need to import image picker in our component. So at the top, let's import everything as image picker from export image picker. We need to define a state for the selected image, set image, use state is going to be null initially. Now we need this function called pick image. So let's copy this example function and add it right here. Maybe I'm gonna add it after the one post. Pick image here. So the result image picker is calling launch image library async, media types all. I'm gonna limit to only images. Maybe you want to implement videos as well. I'm gonna limit to images. Allow editing true. This will allow basic editing from the phone, like cropping and so on. Aspect ratio, I don't think we need it. And quality, you can specify a value from 0 to 1, where 1 is full quality, and for example 0.5 is going to be half. The quality is going to be decreased to save a bit of space. Now we're gonna console log result. If result is not cancelled, we are setting the image and this URI is of type string. So we need to specify that this state value is a string or null. Now pick image works, and we need to assign this pick image to a button. In LinkedIn, that's here photo video. So it's an icon at the bottom. So let's go ahead and export icons. Image. Which one do we choose? I know this one looks okay. From Font Awesome. We're gonna import it here. And we're gonna render it below our text input. Maybe inside the view for the with style footer, just to if we will have to adjust it, to put it at the bottom of a screen. So footer, image, can we add some style here to the icon button? So let's go ahead and add these styles here. First of all, footer. The footer, I want to align self. I want to render it at the end. So align self, flex, end. No, that's not what I need. Maybe margin top auto. Yes, that's what I wanted. Margin top auto will add all the available space on the top of a footer and render it at the bottom there. Now icon button, that's how I called it. If I add background color, Gainsborough, I think there is a gray. Yes, that's right. Gainsborough. I don't know why it's so wide. But if I'm gonna have multiple icons of this here, they're all going to be rendering the same line. So there is photo, template, more. Should I do something? Anyway, I'm gonna leave the same icon 3 times. Inside the footer, I'm gonna render them in the same line using flex direction row. And justify content space around. Yes, that's good. Now for the icon button, can I add some padding here, like 10? Yes. Border radius to make them round. I know, 100. It's not gonna change anything, but if you add overflow hidden, in that situation, everything that is overflowing will be hidden. But the problem will be that maybe we need a specific width like 100, height 100, and border radius 50. Okay, maybe 100 is too much. 50, and border radius 25. Yeah, that looks better. I don't need padding now because I will align them using justify content center and align items center. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, I'm gonna have to put the icon inside the view. It's gonna be easier. Like this, and the style icon button on the view itself, not on the icon. So I'm gonna delete all of them, and I'm gonna duplicate it 2 times. Now it's gonna be much easier because what I can do is playing now with padding. So for example, padding 20, and border radius, if I'm gonna add a very high value, it's not gonna mess up our radius. So yeah, this is good. I don't need overflow hidden. I don't need justify content. I don't need the line center. It's much easier like this. Okay, I think that's good. That's good. Maybe gray, dark. No, the dark gray is not very gray. Okay. Okay, you can play with the colors yourself. I'm gonna leave it like this, and what I'm gonna do is this view, I'm gonna make it a pressable, because I need to handle press events when the user selects here. So this pressable icon button will do on press, open, how is it called? Pick image. Post. Okay, and in order to differentiate these buttons, let me maybe find something else. I don't know. Camera maybe. Dots. No. Dots slash horizontal. No? Doesn't want. Doesn't. It's gonna be a glass. I don't know why, but it's gonna be a glass. Because they will not do anything at the moment. We just need this pick image. So if I press on this pick image, as you can see, we already open up the image library. Here we're console logging the results. So first of all, I'm going to show you what happens if we press cancel. Well, we see the result here, assets null, cancelled, true. If we look at the logic here, we check if result is not cancelled, only then we set the image. Okay, that handles properly. So if I select an image here, I can edit it and then I can press choose. And this image now is inside our state variable. We're not doing anything with it, but if we would go ahead and render it before the footer, like this, so, and also conditionally, if image is defined, let's go ahead and render the image using source URI image and style image. We need to import image from React Native. And we need to provide the styles for our image. Sorry. All right, image. Here we have it. Let's go with a width, I don't know, 100% aspect ratio. Of 1. So if I go press, select this one, choose, it's right away here. Maybe it should also have margin top auto, and to be rendered in the middle of the screen. Yes, I think that's perfect. That's what we want. Here are some flowers. If I press submit, it's going to submit. If I come back, it's still going to be selected, because in the on submit function, on post function, when we reset the content, we should also reset the image. So set image to null. Now having this image, we're going to be able to upload it together with our post, store it somewhere in the cloud, and it's going to be rendered in our feed. Awesome. Perfecto. So let's go ahead and let's check console logs. Console log posting. Maybe I need it. Yeah, I'm gonna leave everything like this. So git status, git add, git commit, image picker. David Alvarez, salud, hello. Okay, perfect. I'm thinking that another screen that might be very interesting and that might be very possible and easy to implement using Stepzen in the next episode is going to be searching. And searching is a function that, if we think about it, we never implemented it in an application on YouTube, but it's so important in a lot of applications that we build. So should we go ahead and implement this feature inside our application for the searching? Because it's not going to be very difficult for the user interface. So maybe later, if we're not going to manage to implement, at least we're going to have a user interface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file in our application. Let's do search.tsx. And here let's do basically import text, view, style sheet. What else we will need? From React Native. And here let's export default search screen. Return text search. Export default function. It's either I add both function and arrows or neither of them. It's always like this. So now, how do I want to go to this page? I think whenever I will add an icon here like search on the home feed. Should I? I think so. So inside our root layout, where we have not inside our root layout, it's inside the tabs layout. We have here this header right that is redirecting to the model. I want to redirect to the search. So if I press right now, we are going to the search. For the name, do I have here something like search? Perfect. Colors, I'll go ahead with gray. 25 is too much, 18 is good. So if I press, it's opening like this search. Awesome. Now, what we can do inside this search page, we can have simply a list of users. A list of users, I'm thinking that they should be simply this header of our post. So in the components, let's create a new file, user list item.tsx, and let's copy everything from the post list item inside our user list item. I'm not sure if that was a good idea, but what I wanted to do is leave only the header here. Was it a good idea? No, it was not a good idea. I'd rather only copy the things that we need from there. So inside user list item, let's export default user function, user list item, and here return. What do we, again, I added function and arrow function. What do we need to render here? From the post list item, we can have a look at the header, and let's simply copy this header together with the link. So I'm gonna copy it from here, move it to the user list item. I'm gonna go back to a post list item. From the top, I'm gonna copy all the imports. Let's move them to our component. And we need to remove this comment, definitely. We need to bring the styles. So we need const styles equal stylesheet.create. And the style specifically for our header, for our user image, and maybe username. So where is styles header? This one. These three styles. Let's bring it to user list item. And the properties, props, they will contain simply a user of type user from types. Now we can remove the font awesome and post because we don't need those anymore. We can destructure the user from here by specifying that this should be a user list item props. And where we access post.offer, let's replace post.offer with simply user. Post.offer user, post.offer user, and here as well user. Okay. And in our search here, we basically need an array of users. So if I look at the post, let's go ahead and create a new file. And I'm gonna try to provide this file for you in the asset bundle. So you're gonna have it. So users.json. I'm gonna take everything, users.json. No, again, let's do it like this. So it's an array, and from the posts, I'm gonna go ahead and take, for example, the first offer, but only the object, like this, to the users, paste it here. The second one is this one, users, paste here, without offer. I did the same mistake that saying not to do. Next one, this one. And so on, we will add a couple of more offers, users, I mean. Now, having this array of users in our user, not user list item, in our search page, app search, we can import a flat list to render the list of users, and we can import the data, import users from data users, And let's go ahead and render it here as a flat list where data is our users. And remember, another property that flat list needs is the render item, which will receive an item and should render a user list item like this, where the user is the item. And just like that, we have rendered a list of users in our search page. So if I go here, a list of users, perfect. I can also wrap this in a view, add here a style like background color white, and a flex one. Yes, and another thing that you can do now that you have a separate component that renders basically user list item, but I will not do that. I wanted to showcase how we should replace inside our post list item the header to be the user list item, but in fact it's not like that, because maybe in the post you also need some buttons on the right, so they are two different things, even though at the moment they are very similar, but they have different meaning. So this is our search page that renders a list of users. And what we can do here with a search page, I'm gonna quickly have a look at React navigation, search bar. Should be in the documentation, actually. React navigation, stack, search. Configuring the header bar, search. Search, header, search bar options. So navigation set, here we have it. If in our search page we get the navigation from use navigation and import the use layout effect, and then we set the options here, we can specify the search bar options. So what options does it have? Autofocus, bar, input type, placeholder. Let's do placeholder. Search users. So if I'm going to go to the search right now, if I scroll down, we see this search bar and the header search users. And I can do ABC. And here, maybe I can do on value, or how is it called them? A callback that gets called on change text is a function that is being called when the text changes. So const do's, or maybe I can save it in state. Search, set search equal use state, like this, and on change text I can call the set search. Hello. Yes, perfect. Perfecto. I think that's it with our search screen as well. So I can do git add, git commit, -m search page. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining. I think this was everything that I wanted to showcase today. And the most important thing is that this is not over. Next week, we're gonna implement the backend side. So make sure to join next week where we will bring this project to an end. We're gonna implement the backend side using Stepzen. We're gonna build a GraphQL API and make all of these features and all of these screens that we implemented today functional. We're gonna have all the data stored in a database, queried through GraphQL in our application. So that's going to be next week. And I want to say thank you very much to Stepzen for sponsoring this series. It wouldn't be possible without you guys. So thank you very much. And in the next episode, you're going to see how easy it is to build GraphQL APIs with Stepzen. I really want to keep this live stream below 4 hours, so we have 10 seconds more. Thank you very much, guys, for joining. Don't forget to subscribe. Let me know in the comments what other projects you want to learn. And I have to end the stream. Bye-bye, guys.